Hello, my name is Dan Fisher, and I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a husband. I'm a parent of two daughters. They're 23 and 25. Probably the most important part of my life is my family. I'm executive director of the National Empowerment Center. We're located in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and we're funded by SAMHSA, our federal government. I myself have recovered from schizophrenia. When I was in my 20s, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I then went to medical school, became a psychiatrist, practiced in the field for 30 years as a psychiatrist. Prior to that, I was a biochemist. I have a PhD in biochemistry, and I worked at the National Institute of Mental Health for 5 years on neurotransmitters, and just found they were not the answer to mental health, or my mental health either. In about 3 years ago also, I was a member of the White House Commission for Mental Health, and hopefully seem to have played some role in recovery being incorporated into the message of that commission report. And it's nice that we're right here in Washington, D.C., because I believe these matters ultimately need the attention of administrators and legislators here in our nation's capital, that we can change the laws, change the reimbursement, change the policies, and that can have ripple effect throughout the world, because for better or for worse, the eyes of the world remain upon us. I hope we can set a positive example of recovery for the world. Let me say this about medication. First of all, I am a psychiatrist, board-certified psychiatrist. I've worked as a medical director for 12 years of a community mental health center. I prescribe medication. That's not only part of my job, that's what they mainly pay me to do. Because the unfortunate reality is that the economics right now mean that a psychiatrist mainly writes prescriptions. Because I've been there long enough, I also do several groups, which I encourage psychiatrists to do. And but in terms of medication, the psychiatric medications, both from my personal experience of taking the medications and from prescribing medications, they can be helpful in terms of reducing the severity, the extreme emotional states that people get into that are described as mental illness. I don't really subscribe to it being just a simple illness, but people are in severe emotional states and have difficulty returning from those severe emotional states. My own example, for me, the extreme emotional state I was in was fear. I was in extreme fear, and it could be called paranoia. I did generate a number of different explanations for why I was so frightened, but it was basically a downward spiral. I became convinced that I couldn't trust my roommates, and then I couldn't talk to them about not trusting them, and then I decided that they must be, in some way connected to other people, like the National Institute of Mental Health, where I was working, and that my girlfriend worked at the National Institute of Mental Health in another lab. It was a clinical lab, so I figured that she was probably, that it was an experiment of one lab experimenting on another. Very sort of elaborate, complex, but basically very frightening situation, and decided that it was not safe to talk to anyone. And if you don't talk to people, it really gets you in a bind. Your imagination kind of takes over about what people really are thinking, because you can't test it out with any kind of conversation. And so they told me I had to take medication. I didn't really want to take medication. They forced me to take medication. And in retrospect, I wish they had developed a relationship first. I think that the medication is much more effective when it is taken and given within a relationship. And there's never there rarely is an opportunity for people to develop the relationship ahead of time if it's your first time in a hospital or in that particular hospital. But I certainly advocate that, because then you can really develop an alliance, and a full explanation as possible is very important with the medication. Now, I never felt I was really adequately informed of all the various side effects of medication. Personally, when I am prescribing medication, I try to describe it in the following fashion. I'll say, well, this is what we know about this medicine. Say we're talking about some atypical antipsychotic. I'm not going to mention any particular one because people think either I'm in favor or not in favor of one over the other. They each have their benefits and their drawbacks. But say somebody is really quite in a state of fear, as I was in, and they are very convinced that they can't trust people. That is a very serious situation, because trust and relationships are such an essential part of the road back to recovery. Well, I'll explain to the person that I'm seeing, well, this is what we know. This will reduce the severity. I put it very much in lay terms as much as possible. I don't say, it reduces the dopamine, or, because we don't even know what these do. They seem to act on a lot of different neurotransmitters. But we do know it can reduce some of the severity of your emotional response, so that you can start to gain a little more control of your life. It will not control you, and it will not control what you're saying or doing, but this will enable you to gain more control of your life, and that it's a tool, and it's one of several tools to enable you to be able to interact with people in a fashion that really facilitates your recovery. Now, one client explained to me very well. He'd been in a group that I'd done for a number of years, and he made very good progress. He'd gotten off substances, which is an important thing to do. People need to be honest about that, and certainly taking marijuana or alcohol can interfere with any kind of aspect of psychological recovery. And he had not been honest for a while, and then he told me, and then I helped him get involved in AA and NA. But he still had a lot of work to do. So then he got his own apartment, and he started working part-time, and developed some friendships. So I asked him to say to the group, what's been important in your recovery? Well, the very first thing he said was medication. Very first thing. So I said, okay, now your medicine hasn't been changed for a long time, though. Is there any possibility there's anything else that might have assisted in your recovery? And he said, well, actually, the medication acts like a foundation, but I build the house. And I thought that was very valuable, because what he really then was able to describe was that, sure, so, you need a pretty secure footing at least, but that doesn't do the house. And the house is of his design, and it's of his efforts and his creativity. And I do try to emphasize to people that they need to take an active role in their own recovery. So if they have the image that just taking something will solve their problems, that will perpetuate a more passive posture. But it's more something, they use it as a tool, one of many, and then they can enter into relationships